Cliff Schmucker, president of PIA.
Yes.
Thanks for having us here at the show and sharing all this with everybody.
Of course. Thank you, Douglas.
We're not here to talk about PIA right now, though. Let's talk about AADs a little bit.
Of course.
So tell us about your AAD product.
Well, the CYPRES is, I think everyone knows it. In fact, everyone knows it so well, it's sort of turned into a synonym for AAD. In fact, probably we're starting to suffer now the same problem that the Xerox copier did back in the day.
I would think so. It's kind of the Kleenex of AADs.
You could say that, yes. Yeah. But of course, in a lot of ways, that's a compliment. So it's the way it is. The CYPRES has been in use now for over 22 years. And of course, we're now, the CYPRES 2 is now the one that has been sold for the last, 10 or so now. Yeah,
10 years,
yeah. So I should know those numbers, but I don't. It's been around for a while. But anyway, it's we have various models of it for different applications. I've got my military shirt here on too because I'm talking to some military customers also. But in the civilian side, the standard expert unit with the red button. Of course, there's the tandem unit, the student unit, and what we call the speed CYPRES for the canopy pilots that are really getting it on below 1,000 feet.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you service a lot of people. I mean, you manage the military side all the way on the top end and the consumer side. That I know you worked with the Stratos project.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting project there, and just another example of a specialized unit for a specialized project.
Excellent. One of the emails we got this morning, people were asking a little bit about the units that are coming in for service that may have been inside the window of the
service bulletin.
I'm not sure how to describe what the issue is.
Well, the units that are affected by the recent service bulletin, it's essentially the units that were manufactured for the last 4 years, and the best way to describe the condition is. I don't like to use the word lockup, but that's essentially what it is.
Right. Okay.
And non-responsive is actually a better word. And the way we discovered the phenomena was a report of a device that didn't switch off automatically after 14 hours. And it's like, well, that's kind of strange. You keep track of those sort of things and try to figure out if it's an issue or whatever. And then about 6 months later, there was another report of one where the user said, I couldn't switch it off at the end of the day. And that started getting us a lot more excited. And finally started putting the pieces together, and we discovered that there was a certain number of units that, due to a change that a particular piece of hardware vendor made, that had actually been evaluated and tested by us, because he said, hey, I can't make this part anymore, and in the big scheme of electronics, we're not a real big user, compared to cell phones or other, consumer type products and so on. So it's like, hey, this part you've been getting for me for years, I'm making this change in it, I'm giving you a chance to evaluate it, evaluate it for months, no issues, and then later on this phenomena cropped up. But during the analysis of the phenomena, we'd answer two questions. First, was it serious enough to have to ground the units? To ground them and recall them, because if it would have been a serious safety issue, that would have been the first thing done. Secondly, we had to determine, was there a viable field test, for those who wanted to make sure that their device in that date range didn't have that phenomena before they got on the airplane.
Right.
Because due to the nature of it, the worst case scenario is that you could be 1 day without AED coverage when you thought you did. Because if you switch it on at the beginning of the day and jump it that day, the next day when you go to switch it on again, you click the button and there's no red light. Or the device is still on, it didn't turn itself off.
Right.
So, like I said, the worst case scenario is there'd be a possibility of a day of jumping when you thought you had your AED in play and it wasn't. And I'm a big believer of Murphy. And even though that's statistically maybe doesn't sound like it's that big a deal, Murphy's always out there and lurking, especially in skydiving, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we tested, we came up with the field test, which the field test is when your CYPRES is on, click the button, and if the light flashes, you know it's active.
Okay.
And there's no issue.
And that's it.
That's it. So during the gear check, when you're checking your reserve pin, checking your your pilot chute, all the other things you're supposed to be checking, your handles and all that, just click the button one time, watch the light to flash, put your rig on, and you're good to go. And that's it.
Have you discovered very many more units?
No. Actually, since the service bulletin's come out, there's been one more. So I think we're at a total of about 17 devices now out of over 30,000.
That's a pretty good record.
Which, again, it doesn't sound like a huge number. It really isn't a huge number. But again, it's something we were able to isolate and determine, and it's being taken care of. As far as the devices that are out there that have been manufactured the past 4 years, the oldest ones that were built in 2009 are already being serviced with the 4-year maintenance. So those devices are automatically coming back with the updates.
Okay, good.
And
I'm glad to hear that, because I actually have 2 units back at SSK for update right now.
Okay, there you go. And any devices that have a January 2013 date of manufacture or later, and any of the devices that have been serviced since the first of the year have the update. Okay. And the plan is, once we get caught up a little bit, because we had essentially 2 months with no production and no maintenance during the investigation of this phenomenon, we got backed up a little bit with maintenance units and so on coming in, and we're getting caught up with this backlog, and then the plan is to start bringing in the units on the other side of the 4 years. Start with the ones that were most recently manufactured, like the guys that just got a brand new unit in December, and the first thing they see is, man, now there's a service bulletin out on this thing. What the heck? So we'll be starting with those, working back month by month, and at some point,
some time.
It'll take a little time, but at some point, we'll meet in the middle. The ones that are coming in from maintenance on the one end of the 4 years, working our way back with the newest ones manufactured, and we'll meet in the middle. So instead of it taking 4 years, for the field to get updated, maybe it'll take 2 years instead. And it's just, we're gonna, as capacity is available, we're going to bring them in, get them done. But in the meantime, the important thing is there isn't really an issue. Just, click the button, make sure you got the light, and you're good to go.
Sounds great. Well, I want to switch on to a slightly different topic. Let's talk about why people should have an AAD overall. You'd think that the answer is really self-evident, but it seems like there are some newer jumpers, especially those that are coming into the sport thinking they might eventually be getting into wingsuiting and so forth, or swooping. They think, I don't want to buy an AAD, and I don't believe an AAD is necessarily being mandatory, but let's talk about the benefits and how things work.
Well, certainly skydiving, I would agree about not saying that AADs should be necessarily mandatory. I mean, there's a lot of things in our sport about freedom of choice. On the other hand, if I was a DZO, I might consider making mandatory for people who jump at my drop zone, but again, that would be a freedom of my choice, a business decision. And on the other hand, certain situations, like students, tandem, I mean, that's a no-brainer. We obviously need AADs, for beginner jumpers and so on. As far as why everyone should jump an AAD, when Helmet Cloth first brought the CYPRES onto the market 22 years ago, that was the era where you had to hide the fact that you even had an AAD if you wanted to get an RW load. In fact, that was some of the design parameters of the CYPRES, that it was so small and tiny as compared to the stuff that was out on the market at the time, that it could be hidden on your rig. And that's why the control unit on a lot of rigs yet today is hidden under the reserve flap. So you can even see it external to the rig.
Right.
Of course, times have changed now. Now it's almost the flip side. If you don't have an AAD, people kind of go, what's up here? And as far as some of the more specialized mediums in skydiving, a number of years ago, the same question came up with crew. Well, I'm doing crew. Why do I need an AAD? And we've had 2 or 3 saves with crew, though. Between entanglements where people weren't taking care of business, at time, and amazingly enough, their canopies were so wrapped up and shredded that they were going faster than the activation velocity. The reserve got out, saved the pair. We had another guy that, what was it? He cut away and got whacked by someone else's foot or something like that, and was only semi-conscious, and another AAD save with crew. And canopy piloting, that's of course another interesting one right now, especially with the possibility of an activation. So our answer there was the speed CYPRES. In fact, as of January 2013, we've even increased the activation velocity slightly on the speed CYPRES, trying to keep ahead of some of the really fast, really hot canopy pilots that are really getting it on below 1,000 feet. For the average canopy pilot, there's probably not an issue with the regular one, but you need to keep track of your speed. And in fact, we do have some data loggers and so on that are available for some people who want to see where they're really at, so we can get a proper recommendation. Now, of course, wingsuiting, well, that's another interesting avenue in skydiving, which I know you're heavily involved in.
A little bit.
And a little bit. And I know you've mentioned to me before that there's people that tell you that, well, gee, I'm doing wingsuiting. I'm not going to run into anyone else or get knocked unconscious or whatever. Why do I need an AED, especially since if I'm flying through 750 feet above the ground with my wing fully inflated, it's not going to activate anyway. Well, that's not always the way skydives go. And, we've already seen situations where someone was out of control or, he wasn't in stable flight. And yes, you are going fast enough to get an AED out, to get a canopy out activated by an AED, or some sort of situation, deployment situation,
sure.
Entanglement with container or other, components. And, wingsuiting at best is a bit more complicated jump than what we call average skydiving. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
It takes some extra training and extra care and extra procedures, and I think there's no question that an AED, even though it might not activate in all flight modes with a wingsuit, just because of your vertical speed, it's not total speed, it's not horizontal speed, it's strictly vertical speed. There are situations where it could make a difference, and it has made a difference.
Yeah, well, we've had, during the 68-way event, for example, we had a jumper that was knocked unconscious right out of the airplane, and AED saved him. Otherwise, he'd have gone in dead if he hadn't had one. Had a couple of mid-air collisions where we've also had similar kinds of situations. So I'm glad to hear you address that, because it's a common thing. Someone's coming into the wingsuit discipline and they'll say, well, I'm going to be a wingsuiter when I hit 200 jumps, so I'm not going to spend the money on it. I'd rather spend my money on jump tickets.
Yeah. Well, it's for the thousands of people that have been saved by CYPRES over the years. Pretty much the universal report is, boy, I'm glad I made that investment.
I would think so. Nobody ever regretted it when they lived.
No, not at all. And of course, that's not to say that an AED, be it CYPRES or any other manufacturer's AED, they're not going to save everyone every time. They're a backup device at best, and there's even certain scenarios where certain jumpers might have been better off without an AED.
Well, but it's still kind of a last chance.
Sure, it's a last chance. It's a backup device, and they do make differences. Made difference for a lot of people.
Well, Cliff, thanks for taking a few minutes to speak with us, both from the position of the president of PIA, but also from the vision of CYPRES.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks much. Let's go on down to the next booth.
All right.